I don't know if it's because I didn't get much sleep last night, but when I was watching this, I found myself confused
Yep.
and I felt very silly for feeling confused. But in fairness to me, there is a fuckload of characters in this thing.
They go all out, and I don't think you should feel bad for feeling confused because it's a very fuck it approach to the plot, and they throw in every character they can, and they throw in every set piece they can, and then the plot just keeps going. I enjoyed it. It's definitely a lot.
I think what helped is, or what would help rather, is if you were sort of quite a big Batman and Scooby-Doo fan, because there was a lot of things I saw in this where I thought, oh, that's a joke for the fans. I don't get it, but I can tell that that's like a reference to something.
Yeah, to Batman mythology, but also specifically Brave and the Bold, which was very much what these characters are from. Mid-2000s Batman animated series that really was an unabashed love letter to the Silver Age version of Batman, which was just very silly and heightened reality and very comedic. And that was a very enjoyable show with Diedrich Bader as Batman, reprising his role here. And yeah, each episode would have Batman team up with a different hero to fight a different villain. That's what's baked into this show. And I don't know what era of Scooby-Doo they were doing. They want to say maybe like Mystery Incorporated. Do you have any knowledge of the most recent Scooby-Doo iterations?
No. Also, I just realized I haven't even introduced you yet. Oh. We're doing the whole episode before we even bloody find out who you are, mate. Fabian Lapham, welcome to Reanimates. There we go.
Oh, happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad to have you because I know you're a big cartoon nerd and I need a cartoon nerd's help with this because today we're doing Scooby-Doo and Batman, The Brave and the Bold, a 2018 feature because as you mentioned, it was a series from, I think, about 10 years before this, 2008, 2011, directed by Jake Castorina in his first feature. And he had worked on the Batman Unlimited series in 2015 before this. And it was written by Paul Jacopo, definitely not pronouncing that right, with a story by James Tucker. So Jeffrey Combs also did a guest starring role in the original Batman Brave and the Bold series as Kite Man. For anyone
great.
Yes, which I haven't looked up anything about that character, but it sounds silly.
Yeah.
Does he have a weapon that is a kite?
That's how he gets around. He kites everywhere. That's his whole thing. That's his entire power set and his personality.
So he just like hang glides from scene to scene.
Yeah. That's all he does. In Brave and the Bold and in the most recent Harley Quinn animated series, it is very much played for comedic effect. And he's actually a really likable character.
Okay,
in
good.
The Harley Quinn animated series, just because of how ridiculous but earnest he is.
That would be the worst thing, is if you had these really silly ideas being taken way too seriously. Thankfully, there's a lot of comedy in this. I actually, even though I'm not usually super into these kind of animated series, and I'm certainly not really into DC either, but this was actually genuinely very funny. Funnier than I would have expected it to be. Although I'm realizing now, who is this aimed for? Is this aimed for children? Or is this aimed for people who would have grown up with Batman, Brave and the Bold, Mystery Inc., etc.?
Yeah, I would say it's aimed at the Brave and the Bold demographic. I'm probably older than their aimed demographic, but yeah, I would think that's the fan base that they're going for. It could be for older fans who might even remember that there was a 60s Batman Scooby-Doo team up, which I watched as a kid. I'm not that old. I didn't watch it in the 60s, but this version was much better. I recall that much.
There's so many iterations of these different characters. You know, Batman, the mystery gang. They do seem to come up every generation or so in new and interesting ways. And I really like this because they haven't gone for, in terms of animation style specifically, they haven't gone for a radically different look to that era of animation. Like they haven't gone for some like really disgusting 3D look. Yeah. Like listeners would know I was talking about on the last Scooby-Doo episode with Michael Williams and Sarah Baggs. I was obviously saying a similar thing there, which was, you know, those cartoons like SpongeBob or Postman Pat, you know, that they devolve into this really gross animation style and it looks very charmless and cold.
Yeah, I agree. I feel the same way.
So we open on the gang, or specifically Shaggy and Scooby, being chased by this like creepy puppet guy. And I was already into it because I really liked these creepy puppet guys. They were really scary. The way they're animated is really grotesque. I was very happy with it. But thankfully Fred has a trap all sorted, because what else would he be doing? Batman appears to tell the Scooby Gang that they're out of their depth. In terms of voices here, we'll just run through them quickly, but it's the usual suspects. We've got Frank Welker doing Fred and Scooby, Matthew Lillard as Shaggy, Grey Griffin as Daphne, and different to the last Scooby-Doo episode that I covered, we have Kate Micucci doing Velma.
Great casting too.
Yeah, she's great. I was trying to work out when I was listening to it, I was like, oh, that sounds really familiar. And I realized that she plays Webby in the new DuckTales series.
Yeah, it's remarkable how very similar to Velma her natural voice kind of is. Yet she's still giving it a bit of characterization. Perfect casting. Oh, did you know that until the most recent movie, Scoob, Frank Welker has been the only animated Fred in all Scooby-Doo from the very first.
What, from like the 60s?
From the 60s. He's been Fred from the 60s till now, and then they broke the damn tradition by casting Zac Efron as Fred in the latest animated movie. They still cast Frank Welker as Scooby, but yeah, they took Fred away from him. Yeah.
What?
Since the 60s. Unbroken until Zac Efron came in.
Well, it's not even, I mean, yeah, you can't blame him for taking the role, but
no.
Why would they be like, hey, we're going to take this guy who has made this role and who's also this incredibly famous voice actor and replace him with some guy? Like, It's not even like Zac Efron is a well-known modern day voice actor. It's like, oh, we need new young blood in the voice acting game. He's just a dude.
Well, I like Will Forte, and they cast Will Forte as Shaggy, but also Matthew Lillard was salty about that too, because he's had the role since he played it in the live action and then transitioned into the animated.
Oh, and you mentioned we also have Diedrich Bader as Batman. He does a really fun Batman. I really like this. I
think so too.
I really like this sort of clippy, very dry, sarcastic Batman. He's quite fun. And he gets a lot of lines in this where it's like, they're not necessarily jokes, but they're funny because of the way they're delivered. And I didn't realize, because I only know Diedrich from his live action work like Office Space. I didn't realize just how much voice acting he had done. Like, he's probably done more voice acting in recent years, than anything else. But
he also plays Batman on the Harley Quinn animated series, which was a HBO, more adults skewed series that I recommend.
So Velma explains that they got an anonymous email about a series of puppet-related thefts, and there's a complicated explanation of these abandoned theater ghosts, but of course they're just people in costume. Specifically, the people who are in the costumes as these theater ghosts are Martian Manhunter and Detective Chimp, who are again two very silly characters, but they are at least played for comedy in this. Detective Chimp is my favorite because that seems like a gag. Like, that seems like if you were going to come up with a superhero or a superhero sidekick on the spot, that's what you'd think of. Oh, I don't know. It's a smart monkey. He's got a hat. I don't know.
He's got a Sherlock hat.
He's very Sherlocky. I think he's even British.
British and pompous.
Very pompous for a chimp. Turns out it was all a test, because Batman wants to get the Scooby Gang involved with the Mystery Analysts of Gotham, which is his little mystery fighting gang. His own mystery gang.
His little QAnon.
Yeah, his little round table. There's a fun fight scene where Batman is battling the Riddler, voiced by John Michael Higgins. Batman gets in all of his reinforcements. Aquaman, voiced by John DiMaggio. Mm-hmm. And the Question, voiced by Jeffrey Combs. Jeffrey, woo!
Yeah, your boy.
Your mate, my mate, everyone's mate. Yeah, I have realized that I should get like a Jeffrey Combs klaxon whenever he appears on screen, but I don't know what it would sound like. It would just have to be some sort of bullhorn, or maybe just like a big siren that just goes Jeff. That might be.
You can record that now if you want. 3, 2. Jeff.
That's great. That's going to be the klaxon from now on. I'll pay you royalties. Don't worry about it. Here's a little clip of Jeff just doing his thing as the Question.
Just so you know, I'm rolling my eyes.
I was watching a video last night about the different voice acting roles that he's done. You know, even though he's not this sort of necessarily like chameleon type voice actor, I would say that he's like that in his live action work. But in his voice acting, he doesn't stretch too far.
He's not a Tom Kenny.
Yeah. You know, he doesn't necessarily dramatically transform. But I will say that there is something in particular about when he does the Question that I think is evidenced by, he mentioned in an interview that the kind of vibe he was going for with the Question was he wanted a sort of film noir vibe. So it's
good choice.
So he's got a very dark, mysterious tones, as opposed to like some of the other roles are bigger and more boisterous.
Do you know much about The Question?
Nope.
So he's created by Steve Ditko, who is the co-creator of Spider-Man. Some could argue the primary creator of Spider-Man. And when he moved to DC after a fight with Stan Lee, he created a bunch of characters there, including The Question. Steve Ditko was a very reclusive man and a very right-leaning man and a disciple of Ayn Rand and her extremist literature. And a lot of that was channeled into The Question, which was a very noirish comic, but with that kind of philosophy. And then he did his own independent version called Mr. A, which was even more unhinged and unabashed, just full on quoting Ayn Rand. It's interesting to point that out too, because his work on Spider-Man never had any of that. I don't know if that was just Stan Lee's interference or if it was just the comic he wanted to make, but like you could almost say that Jameson demonizing Peter Parker is more of the Ayn Rand's right-leaning kind of stand in there. Anyway, I won't talk about Spider-Man. Yeah, and then but later animated versions of The Question have kind of softened him, and in the comics too. And The Brave and the Bold and JLA always kind of made comedic light of him being a conspiracy nut, and that's always baked into the character for comedy. In these modern times, I think you could do something very interesting with the character, something very QAnon based with the character. I think you'd have to do it very delicately. Yeah, it is a rich character with a checkered and interesting history, I think.
Well, yeah, because when in a minute, when Batman introduces him, he does introduce him as their resident conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to have him too QE because he is meant to be a good guy. And so you don't want you don't want people to think that it's good to be that kind of a person.
Yeah.
The Question also has no face, which is very interesting because when it sort of makes, for some reason, it makes his lines to me, that sort of dry comedic lines that he has makes it more funny because there's no expression and you have to, I think it just makes it more sort of deadpan. Yeah, no pan at all.
Yeah.
So Aquaman helps save the day using his hydrokinesis. They don't even invite him to the mystery analyst meeting because he's not technically a detective. Mm-hmm. Rude. I love Aquaman in this.
Me too.
I love that they give him shit. And I love that he's this big, boisterous weirdo.
Brave and the Bold Aquaman is the best Aquaman. Just, big, boisterous goofball who just wants to be everyone's chum and talk about their amazing adventures together.
Yeah, he just wants to
be included.
He wants to be included. He wants to have his mates. He wants to show all of the interesting water-related powers he has. And Batman doesn't respect him, as evidenced by this dialogue.
Not a detective? Why, I'm a whiz at sleuthing out hidden undersea currents. That's oceanography, not criminal investigation. Plus, I can identify 900 species of fish on sight alone. That's ichthyology. Precisely. And who's better at detecting those nasty, hard-to-reach volcanic fissures, eh? Me, that's who. Again, oceanography. But thanks for mopping up.
But yeah, he's useful. He summons a giant squid to come and clean up the mess from the fight.
Yeah, Aquaman can do shit.
I'd love to be able to summon a squid.
And a fun dude to hang out with. Just a fun dude.
Just seems like a big golden retriever guy.
Yeah, he'd be supportive of your career and your friendship, I think.
Yeah, he's kind of like what people want Chris Pratt to be before they get to know anything about him.
Yeah, Aquaman is the platonic ideal of Chris Pratt.
Yeah, the Chris Pratt we all want him to be. So Scooby Gang are off to the meeting. They're being brought into this world. There's lots of characters in this scene. So Detective Chimp, Martian Manhunter, The Question is there, and we also get Black Canary, voiced by Grey Griffin, who Fred is in love with immediately, and Plastic Man, voiced by Tom Kenny. Tom Kenny is SpongeBob, right?
Yeah, and Ice King and Heifer in Rocko's Modern Life. He's also the Penguin in this, and he plays a completely different Penguin in another earlier Batman cartoon.
He's Heifer.
Yeah, he's Heifer.
That was a hoot!
Yeah, very versatile voice actor, Tom Kenny.
Aquaman tries to not storm, he just tries to get involved in the meeting. He's got a perfect disguise, I would argue. He has sort of a Sherlock Holmesian type of disguise that people see through immediately, big dummy. There is also talk of Batman's one unsolved case that he refuses to go into any details about. I'm sure that won't come up again.
Imagine if it didn't.
Yeah. Had nothing to do with it.
Bad writing.
No, it was a red herring. So they're led to the Gotham Chemical Storage Facility to investigate a mystery. Terrible place to go and investigate a mystery. Seems dangerous. Aquaman is trying to get info about Batman's unsolved case. And Aquaman says, "Did you lose another Robin?" Which makes me wonder how many times he's lost Robins. How many Robins have had to die?
That's a specific reference to the comics. Famously, the Joker killed one Robin. That's a rather morbid reference to that, I think.
A thing I like about Martian Manhunter, who I know nothing about. Again, I'm not a comic book person. I'm not into DC or anything. So I don't know anything about Martian Manhunter. But to me, his defining characteristic is that he keeps stealing Shaggy's snacks.
All right. So this is also from the comics.
Okay.
Martian Manhunter canonically loves chocolate cookies, or as he calls them, chocos.
Yes, okay, he does, yeah.
His most endearing character quality.
Yeah, because he's kind of, like, he looks kind of scary. He's kind of this blank-eyed, hovering Martian man. But whenever he sees cookies, he goes, "Mine," and eats them straight out of Shaggy's hand. He's like a dog.
Garfield for lasagna.
Yeah, it is very endearing. Makes me like him a lot more. So Batman is set upon by one of our many villains. This is definitely where I started being like, oh my God, more fucking characters. He's set upon by a terrifying red ghost beast, Crimson Cloak.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. He wants revenge, as I always do. And Crimson Cloak is just fucking up this gang. He has the kind of presence of, and again, I'm going to bring it back to a Jeffrey Combs vehicle, but he reminds me a bit of, the Reaper in The Frighteners, this kind of like outline of what you imagine the Grim Reaper or Death to look like. But he also has these spindly tendrils that can come out of his hand area. I'm not good at describing these things. I will probably just post screen caps.
So I think this character was made up for this movie. And from what I can tell, they've tried to aesthetically take Batman villain aesthetic and mix it with a Scooby-Doo villain aesthetic.
Well, thankfully, they all escape unscathed thanks to Plastic Man, who rolls them up all up inside himself. It's a bit grotesque.
Good Plastic Man gag too, where they're in a cold room and he says he can't stretch when it's too cold. His one weakness.
Yeah, and he's embarrassed.
Please don't tell anyone.
Yeah. That's a joke kids aren't meant to get. Batman tells the Scooby Gang to meet him at the malt shop. When is this set?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there ever a time given? Because both Batman, Brave and the Bold, and Scooby-Doo in general have a 60s appeal. The latter has a 60s origin. And the kids do say things like groovy.
Yeah, that's kind of Daphne's tag in this.
Yeah, timeless, I think is the answer.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with it being not clear. At the malt shop, the gang are harassed by Detective Harvey Bullock. Batman goes over to the diner to meet them, and he orders a buttermilk on ice.
I didn't catch that.
Is that what he fucking orders, a weirdo? What is that? Is that a Bat reference?
I did not catch that. I was too distracted by the image of Batman just sitting down in a diner booth.
Drinking a milkshake.
The antithesis of every Batman pose I've ever seen, and I liked it.
Yeah, he's just sitting down to have a malt with his friends. What? The Bat can't relax?
Usually not, no.
So Batman starts to tell the gang about his unresolved case. This is definitely where I started to get confused. So in the flashback, he looks younger, but only because he has a different mask.
They put him into his original costume from like Batman issue 1, which includes more pointed ears, more like a bat, I guess.
Much more pointed ears, like much longer and pointier, and his whole head is like thinner. In this, he's just got like little dinky pit bull ears on his mask.
And purple gloves too. Because why not?
Yeah, gotta be fancy. So Batman, in the flashback, he is attempting to stop Professor Milo from completing an experiment with a faulty teleport. But the vortex created by the teleport kills Leo Scarlet, one of Milo's assistants. I think he gets sucked into the teleport. And this has haunted Batman ever since because he couldn't save him. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. Because there's like, yeah, they throw more and more like different characters at this plot, and I definitely started to get confused. So they go to the Arkham Asylum to see the Riddler.
Yep.
I'm not sure why.
I've also forgotten. I was just along for the ride.
Yeah, I think that they think that one of the suspects who could be the Crimson Cloak, I think they say that it could either be Leo Scarlett's father, Sam, or the Riddler. Because I think that they say that Professor Milo has died or gone insane or something. He's out of the picture. So they go to see Riddler at the asylum. He's voiced by John Michael Higgins. Riddler tells them to go to the cemetery. Riddler's fun, though. I like Riddler.
I love Riddler. Also think it's kind of cool that there is now just a definitive Riddler voice. And I'm not sure where it came from because it didn't, possibly from John Glover doing Riddler in the 90s. But it's kind of, riddle me this, Batman. And now it's in all the cartoons and all the games. And I don't know. Yeah, I think it might have been John Glover who kind of kickstarted it. But now that's just like the agreed upon Riddler voice.
Yeah, it's great. It makes sense for a villain to have that kind of Dick Dastardly kind of mustache twirling voice. Yeah.
There's also a fun set piece in Arkham where Scooby and Shaggy find the Arkham cafeteria and load up on all the crime and murder themed food that the catering staff have laid out for the.
Oh, I didn't take notice of the food. How was it themed in such a way?
The two I remember, there were burgers with knives in them, and there were Al Capone style puddings.
What makes a pudding Al Capone style, I wonder?
It had Al Capone themed pudding. It had like an Al Capone face and a cigar.
Sure.
And a hat.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like sometimes I wonder if the crime rate in Gotham can really be blamed upon the inmates or the people running Arkham Asylum, because it feels like they're encouraging their love of crime and violence a lot of the time.
Seems like they let them run rampant a lot of the time, to be honest.
Yeah.
I have a question. Arkham is obviously a fictional place,
mm-hmm.
and I know Arkham from horror lore, Lovecraft things.
Mm-hmm.
So how does the Arkham of Batman lore relate to that Arkham, if they're both fictional?
It's no coincidence, and like so many things in comics, it was stolen from something else or influenced by something else. And Lovecraft Arkham came first, and then that started showing up in Batman comics. Originally, it was outside of Gotham, and then as it got retconned, it was just part of Gotham. And then it became part of Batman lore and more famous from Batman lore than it was Lovecraft. But it was just completely shamelessly taken from Lovecraft.
So feasibly, Herbert West, the Reanimator, could pop up in a Batman series.
He could and should.
It's possible. I can't believe they've never done that. What a wasted opportunity, especially when you got Jeffrey Combs sitting right there. Oh,
yeah.
What do I have to write these fucking things for him? Jesus.
Yes, do it.
Herbert West versus Batman. It's what people are crying out to see.
I would love that.
And Herbert would have like an army of the undead behind him. All of his.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Brilliant.
I mean, surely someone's done at least fan art of it. I am going to have to go and investigate it. To Tumblr.
Yes.
There's a wide shot of the rooms in the asylum, which again, I have to assume is a little nod to fans, because there's a bunch of rooms that you can see and there's people's faces sticking out. And I have to assume that those are references to people from comics. There's a guy with a clock face. Who the fuck is that?
That could be the Time King.
That makes sense. I will post a bunch of screen caps on the social of all of the, what I presume to be background gags. So Crimson Cloak confronts the gang and Batman at the asylum. He turns off the power, meaning that all of the patients are let loose from their rooms. And again, like a lot of these characters that we see are given focus. I have to assume that they're references to comic books, other series. And in the cafeteria, Shaggy and Scooby are attacked by Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn and a whole bunch of other dastardly doers. Harley and Ivy are both voiced by Tara Strong, who's very good.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There is a fun sequence where Shaggy and Scooby have to, I guess, eat themselves out of a food fight. Yeah. Harley Quinn starts a food fight in the cafeteria because she's insane, I guess. Yeah, there's a great animation sequence of Shaggy and Scooby just eating their way out. And then the next shot is, I guess, like classic Scooby-Doo. It's the gang chasing all the baddies around the asylum, going like in and out of doors, running across the screen. Yeah, it's like that classic farcical, like old Scooby-Doo thing.
Yeah, which was fun.
It is fun. It's nice to have those little nods to the original. Yeah, it's kind of nice that they're not doing that thing of like, this ain't your daddy's Scooby-Doo. This is a new Scooby-Doo for the go-go young generation. This is Scooby-Doo for Zoomers. Zoomy-Doo.
Well, that's what Scoob was. The most recent movie was very Zoomy-Doo.
Yeah, was it?
To credit where it's due, it had some really good jokes in it, but the overall plot was pretty underwhelming and more haphazard than this episode that you're currently reviewing. And I feel like this Brave and the Bold Scooby-Doo was able to capture the essence of Scooby-Doo in the opening set piece more than that film could do in 93 minutes.
Yeah, but the images I've seen, again, the animation style just looks really gross. I don't like it. They end up in Arkham Cemetery where they find a footprint in a tomb and they're able to like take the footprint away. And Detective Bullock is trying to just harass Batman and the Mystery Gang, I guess. He seems to believe that they're responsible for a whole host of crimes and they're being framed.
ACAB includes Detective Harvey Bullock.
Especially him. He's very film noir-y, like Hang Dog, Eddie Valiant type character. You imagine him like losing the perp and then he takes off his hat and stamps up and down on it, you know?
Yeah, or beating up the perp with a rolled up phone book.
So for some reason, like they escape in the mystery van and for some reason Scooby is driving.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he can talk. Why can't he drive? He actually drives very well for a dog. Often you forget that Scooby is a dog because they treat him like a person and then someone has to remind them that that he's a dog. In this scene, one character tries to give Scooby directions and he goes the wrong way. And Daphne says, yeah, he doesn't know directions. He's a dog.
It's just that he's so verbose that if he was talking to you about what kind of sandwich he wanted for lunch while he took a shit on the carpet, you would, you'd be conflicted as to how you feel about him.
Scooby and Shaggy somehow meet somewhere in the middle because Scooby has as much humanity as Shaggy has being a dog. Like Shaggy acts a bit like a dog sometimes. So somehow they're both dog men.
Yeah.
I know what I mean by this.
I think I do too. I'm with you.
So they end up in a part of town called No Man's Land. And I guess they wanted to give Shaggy and Scooby like a fun comedic moment here. The gang, they're threatened by these two burly blokes in an alleyway. So Shaggy and Scooby act like they're having some sort of football game barbecue.
Yep.
And they're like, hey guys, you got to have some hot dogs before the big game. And the guys are like, oh, well, I better have one. And then they just spray mustard in their face so they can get away.
This was also this is a set piece from the original Scooby-Doo. You'd see that.
It felt like it.
Routinely. Shoogie.
That's them.
Shoogie. Yeah. Shoogie would often, employ some kind of ridiculous disguise and then do a little farcical bit like that.
Oh, is that what Zoomers mean when they call things Shoogie?
Yes, they mean specifically Scooby-Doo and Shaggy.
Yes.
Doing a routine.
So when Zoomers are trying to say that something is like cringe or like a bit, hammy or lame, they mean that it is akin to the plans of Shaggy and Scooby-Doo when trying to foil a perp. Of course.
Yeah. Even if those foils are successful, they're cringy to watch.
Look, they're very silly. They're very shoogy. Yeah, I think Batman says immediately after it, there's no way that should have worked. And he's right.
He's quite correct.
The van crashes into some sort of villain's bar. There's just a bunch of freaks there. You've got Joker and you've got Penguin. You've got a guy with a baby head.
Yeah, I think that character's called Babyface, if I recall correctly.
They're not hugely creative with these names, are they? God. Hey, who's that guy with the skateboard sticking out of his neck? Hey, that's Skatey Neck. I assume that Babyface is a reference to like the old gangster. Like I assume that's, hey, wouldn't it be funny if his name was literal? I get that.
Yeah, it's a Dick Tracy thing.
Yeah, but it's really weird because it's a full-size man with a baby head.
Yeah,
What's his power?
Comics.
What's his power? Being a baby.
I think he's just a gangster. And you know what? I'm going off a foggy memory. I could be wrong on this. We haven't talked about Babyface when I've just completely made that up out of the ether. Yeah, this is comics. It's comics.
I'm going to look up baby head guy. I want to see what his deal is. He just shits on you. That's what he does.
Imagine if he had a completely irrelevant power set to his baby face.
Yeah. Like he can shoot lasers out of his belt buckle or something. Yeah.
Control electricity.
I just happen to have a baby head.
Yeah.
Don't draw attention to it. So the Joker and the Penguin lead a chase. 2 carfuls worth of baddies chasing them. There's one guy that I noticed as well. There's so many just things to look at in these scenes where there's like a lot of characters. There's a guy with a pencil head. Is that someone?
I think he's in the same tier as Babyface in that I'm not overly familiar with them. It feels like something that a writer has made up as a throwaway gag and that they've been kept away as throwaway jokes. Possibly Paul Dini, I'm not sure.
Because I initially thought that it was a reference to the film Mystery Men.
Oh, yeah.
There's a scene where the Mystery Men are auditioning for a new hero, and there is a man called Pencilhead who auditions. And I remember that scene because he comes out and he says,
"Hi, I am Pencilhead."
And then his son comes out and says,
"And I am son of Pencilhead."
We erase crime.
That character is called the Eraser and was created in 1966.
Yeah, it seems like a 60s idea. What does he do? Oh, he erases crime?
Oh, Babyface, I did get correct as well. Let's look up the Eraser. I don't know if he does. I think he's just a gangster. He just happens to have that. Surely he must do some kind of erasing.
What is the point of having a pencil for a head if you don't do anything with it? I always
Here we
say.
Go. Powers and abilities. The Eraser wore shoes tipped with pencil point blades that could also emit a sleeping gas. The best thing you could do to associate pencils and crime is sleeping gas. He wore a mask topped off with a giant eraser that could rub out evidence from crime scenes like footprints and fingerprints.
Do you think he wears like a pencil head mask, or do you think his head is a pencil?
Yeah, according to that indisputable evidence that I just researched, it is a mask.
Do you think he has to keep refilling the erasers when they get nubbed down?
He would have to.
Yeah.
He's not magic.
Who pays for that?
Crime. Crime pays for that.
Crime does pay. Batman takes the gang to the Bat Cave. They are so excited about this, as you would be. You're a fan. You're a fan of Batman. You'd be like, yeah, I want to see your cave full of bat shit. They watch.
Welcome to my cave. Here's all my bat shit. Don't touch my bat shit.
There's no other bats in his cave, though. Are there normally bats in there?
Daphne steps in bat shit. No, sorry.
Yep.
Daphne or Velma?
Velma.
Someone steps in bat shit. Yeah.
But we don't see any bats. You'd think that he'd be surrounded by bats at all times, them being his best friend.
Is it nightfall?
Oh, that's true. They're probably asleep.
He might be out hunting. Yeah.
God, that'd be annoying when he's trying to work in the Bat Cave. He's trying to do like admin, and there's just bats flying everywhere. He's like, I chose
to do admin.
I chose this life, but still, like,
I'm trying to do some spreadsheets.
In the Bat Cave, they watch a press conference where that detective is showing a video, and I didn't understand where this video came from, of Shaggy stealing stuff from somewhere.
Mm.
Do you know what he's stealing or where it was from? Because I didn't get that.
No, I didn't pick that up either.
Yeah, Shaggy's being framed. They've got video of him stealing some sort of big tube, but it's obviously not him. They're like, he walked right past that plate of donuts, so it can't really be him, even though it looks just like him. How will
go to town on his physical shortcomings, such as his soulless beady eyes,
matchstick arms, I believe they say. Honestly, though, like when I look at the Scooby Gang, and I know in my heart, I know myself, I'd probably more likely date Shaggy than I would date Fred. I know my type.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. Fred's obsessed with traps. Can't shut him up about traps.
I think Shaggy'd be more chill.
Although, I don't know if you've seen the new Mystery Incorporated series, and people who listen to the last Scooby-Doo episode will know this. In that, Velma and Shaggy were dating for a bit. I don't know why they were like, let's put these two romantically together for some reason.
Well, had the show kept going, the showrunner's original intention was to have her eventually get a girlfriend. So, yeah, so we don't know if he would have gone through with that. It's easy to say things like that when a show's no longer on the air. But I'm a fan of that show, so I think I intend to believe him.
So Batman goes to Milo's old lab, where the teleport device was, I guess, to get some answers. Aquaman meets him there because he just wants to help, man. And the Question shows up as well. He's also there investigating. And then the Crimson Cloak appears. Batman deduces that it is Leo Scarlet, I guess. Yep. Here's
where it really starts to get pretty complicated.
Yes. And even by the end, I had so many more questions. Meanwhile, in the Batcave, Velma is studying the soil from that footprint they found in the tube, the tomb, and the mud comes to life and it starts making like creature shapes, like shape-shifting. And they managed to destroy it by dehydrating it in Batman's food dehydrator, which every good superhero must have in their arsenal, obviously. They figure out that Batman is captured by checking out his cowl camera. Fred says, Plan B, and B is for Bat. Shut up, Fred, idiot.
He's their leader.
Yeah. After that line, they look towards a row of costumes that are hanging up in the Batcave, and they're all the costumes of Batman's former sidekicks. They're all exactly the same sizes as the Scooby Gang. I wonder what that will lead to. Off the top of their heads, do they create a bat dog in some way?
No, Batman in old comics used to have Ace the Bat Hound.
Okay, good.
No, that's all from the comics. There's Ace the Bat Hound, there's original Robin, there's Nightwing, and then there's an old Batman. The Batman suit that we talked about before with the...
Yeah, they're great. They look really fun. Wait, so does that mean that whenever Batman got a pet, it'd have to be like a bat pet? Like if he got a cat, it'd have to be like Bat Cat, Bat Hamster, Bat Axolotl,
Bat Ferret.
He went through a lot of pets because he was so rarely home, and the bats would also often eat the pets. This is
Bats do that? Do bats eat pets?
Small ones, yeah. You should have seen what happened to Bat Chihuahua. Enough of that nonsense. Crimson Cloak has Aquaman and Batman hanging from the ceiling. Oh no! He wants to reignite the teleporter. So the Mystery Gang go to save Batman in their fancy costumes, and Crimson Cloak manages to create a bunch of villains out of his shape. It's really hard to describe what he's doing. He can sort of shapeshift into different... like Alex Mack. He's like Alex Mack.
It's an amorphous blob shift transformation, and he takes on multiple forms.
Yes, and he can like split and divide and stuff.
Like an amoeba.
Or flubber.
Or flubber.
And this whole sequence is really fun. This is like this big sort of fight scene, and it's very 70s. It's got like great 70s funk music, very farcical animation. It's really fun. I was glad that they had a little bit of that old school spirit in there. So Fred uses the bat dehydrator on Crimson Cloak and turns him into dust. So in the wrap-up, Crimson Cloak is actually Basil Carlo?
Clayface.
Okay, so this is like a different guy now?
Yeah, look, yeah.
Who's Clayface?
Clayface is a classic Batman villain who is a former actor who gets transformed into a clay monster, and he has shape-shifting abilities. He can create weapons out of his hands, but he can also transform into other people.
Because this is what confused me, because then I was like, okay, does that mean that Crimson Cloak and Clayface are in cahoots, or was Clayface actually the Crimson Cloak this whole time?
That one. Clayface was the Crimson Cloak.
Okay, he was just like taking on the shape of the Crimson Cloak in order to appear to be like a ghost or something.
Yeah, because he's an actor, so he can take on roles as he transforms.
Oh, yes, of course. Classic role of the Crimson Cloak. The one everyone wants to do.
I've played Hamlet, I've played Macbeth, but no role compares to the Crimson Cloak.
I always really liked Kenneth Branagh as the Crimson Cloak. I think he did the definitive one, you know.
I am currently performing in the Velvet play.
They say it's cursed. Clayface says that he restored the teleporting machine for the Riddler, and he stole the stuff that the Mystery Gang are now being pinned for, because he wants to fix his body. The Riddler has said that he will give him a cure for the decay of his clay body.
Clayface is a tragic villain. He doesn't want to be Clayface.
He seems so, yes. He seems oddly sympathetic by the end, yeah. So the Riddler sitting in Arkham then turns out to not be the real Riddler. He is a clay decoy all this time.
Yeah.
So then the question, he's not been in this scene the whole time. He's like buried in rubble at the start of this scene, even though he was helping Aquaman and Batman. And then it's only now when he says, oh, I managed to dig myself out of the rubble. But then the question is unmasked as the real Riddler. He's been posing as the question this whole time. He took Question's place during the fight before the meeting at the start of the episode. Oh, it's a lot of stuff happening. A lot of balls in the air. Even though this seems like the end of the episode, It sounds like it's going to be. The Riddler escapes and tries to use the teleporter on the whole city. He's like, I got grand plans for this, or whatever.
Penguin.
That's the Penguin. That's the wrong one. I can't do the Riddler. Thankfully, the real question appears and knocks the Riddler out so that the Mystery Gang can stop the teleporter. And Batman, he starts to get sucked into the teleporter, and Scooby pulls him out. But in pulling out Batman, Batman also pulls out Leo Scarlet, who has been gone for years. And there is a very complicated explanation as to how that works. And I didn't understand it, so I didn't write it down.
In short, the explanation was, don't worry about it.
Yep. The explanation was science reasons.
Comic science reasons.
Yeah, because there's a thing throughout the episode where whenever Batman is in the lab, the old lab where the teleporter was, he can hear Leo Scarlet's voice calling to him. And he's like, where is that coming from? So, I don't know, alternate dimension?
Yeah.
Yeah? I don't know.
Yeah. He was in stasis in an alternate pocket dimension.
Some sort of liminal state? Who's to say? And Combs actually has another role in this episode. He has one line at the very end of this where he plays Leo Scarlet's father, who comes. Oh. Yeah, so in pretty much the very last scene, Leo Scarlet's father comes and they're both reunited, and he has one line where he's like, "Oh, my son," or something. That's pretty much all wrapped up. Everyone goes about their business. The Mystery Gang are like, "Cool, we're in with the Batman now. That's going to be good for our future crime-solving careers."
The Batman even says, "You fill out those suits well, Mystery Incorporated."
Mm-hmm. And Batman's happy because his one unsolved case is now solved. It's a clean slate. I think Plastic Man says something about how hard he'll be to deal with now.
This fucking guy.
Yeah. I do like the idea that they all they all like Batman. They all get along with him, but they're also aware of, he's kind of a bit like poncy, just walking around taking things like super seriously, never having any fun. Yeah.
And he's incredibly arrogant.
Yeah. And he's rich, so he's always wanting to go out for really fancy dinners with the rest of the gang, and they don't have as much money as him. And he expects them to split the bill evenly.
There is I can't remember specifically where it's from. There's a great moment in one of the animated stories where Superman accidentally breaks a computer in the Batcave, and he goes, "Oh, I'll pay for that." And Batman goes, "Yeah, on a reporter's salary."
Rude.
Yeah.
Why is Bruce Wayne so rich?
Oh, it's old money. He just inherited that from his parents.
Okay, what did his parents
old money
do?
Before that? Yeah. No, he was a doctor, but it's also old money. He's in the 1%. I'm sorry to say.
He's a blue blood.
He has a blue blood, 100%.
Oh, Mr. Batman, are you here? Are you here from Cape Cod? Where are you summering? Batman of the Massachusetts Batmans. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the idea, isn't it? That like Superman is like the working man superhero, right?
Yeah.
Like he's more of a 99% guy, whereas Batman is, a bit untouchable, incredibly rich, incredibly powerful.
Yeah, his power is his wealth and his keen detective skills.
Yeah, I really appreciate having someone who knows a lot about this because, yeah, I've never been into like comics and stuff like that, and so when I was watching this, I like enjoyed it. But I enjoyed it and it was fun, and obviously I know probably as much about Batman and Scooby-Doo and general superhero stuff as anyone who engages with pop culture in any way. But yeah, I do wonder if this was one of those things that was made for like fans.
Conversely, I know too much about comic lore, and there's still stuff that I didn't grab either. So yeah, very much made for fans.
Which is fine, because obviously there is always going to be Batman fans. I mean, that's why there's always these constant iterations, right? Like you're never going to not have Batman properties.
Batman's a very malleable character, and you can do the more popular edgelord Batman, or you can do Scooby-Doo team-up Batman.
Out of curiosity, who is your favorite filmic Batman?
Christian Bale, but more to do with the filmmaking involved in that era of Batman. That's my preferred version of Batman. I don't know if Christian Bale is 100%. The reason why I think it's more Christopher Nolan and the choices Nolan made. But yeah, that is my version. What about yourself?
Well, I've only seen a smattering of different Batman movies. And in terms of filmmaking, though, Michael Keaton. Like, Batman Returns is so much fun and so weird.
I mean, I love those versions too, because they were my first Batman was Batman 66. And that was, so I love silly, stupid Batman. And then I latched onto the Burton Keaton Batman, and that was my Batman. And I've pretty much gone along with the ride for pretty much everyone except for Zack Snyder. Yeah, Batman is a malleable character, and I'm unlike other nerds of my age, I don't think there is one best version of Batman. I think it's a malleable character, and people should embrace that there are different things you can do with him.
That's the thing Batman doesn't do anymore. He doesn't dance.
He doesn't dance anymore.
He doesn't. He should dance. Why did he dance in the first place?
Because it was the 60s.
Genuinely, why did he dance?
Okay, that's in the very first episode of Batman 66. He's gone into a swinging nightclub to do some bat investigating while Robin waits in the car because he's not 18 and can't go into the club.
You wait in the car. Poor Robin sitting there playing on a... Yeah. It's the 60s. He wouldn't even been doing anything. He would have just been flicking the car lighter.
I can tell you what he's doing. He's on the bat monitor in the car. He's watching Batman dancing with a 60s go-go girl inside, clicking along like a beatnik. While his father figure seduces this woman. Batman has an orange juice, but someone spikes the orange juice, and I can't remember if he dances while under the influence or if he's just a groovy guy who's kind of in the groove. Yeah, and then later in that episode, that girl goes back to the Batcave, and she turns out to be a criminal, and she falls into the nuclear reactor, the Bat nuclear reactor that he has in the Batcave. And Adam West says, "What a way to go. The go dancer."
God.
More of that, please.
More puns. Well, thank you, Fabian, for being
a pleasure.
For teaching me a lot. I'm so glad you're a massive nerd.
I apologize if I've rambled on or just said things that weren't clear because I'm not used to speaking to people anymore.
Love a ramble. Anything to plug?
No, not at the moment. I'm just in development. People can follow me on my Twitter or my Instagram, which is Fabian Lapham or the Count of Monte Cristo, if you want.
Well, as usual, you can follow this podcast on @ReanimatesPod on Twitter and Instagram. Reanimates Podcast on Tumblr and Facebook, and just search Reanimates Podcast on YouTube. Been putting all the episodes there as soon as I can, usually after the episode, if you like to listen to podcasts there. And, do that usual stuff. Subscribe in your podcast apps, rate, review, send me a nice handwritten letter, buy me a sandwich. I don't know. Help me.
Riddle me this, Lisa. When is a hairbrush not a hairbrush? When it's a Jeffrey Combs.
Yay!